guys, it's Jessica, your dating and marriage coach. Today, we're going to be interviewing Susan Barth. Please tell us a little bit about you.
Jessica, I'm very honored to be part of this podcast for many, many reasons, because I hold your work in such high esteem and for beginning. So therefore, I'm particularly honored. In terms of myself, I must tell you that at the start, I am not a mental health professional. I got involved in the whole idea of marriage in terms of education because I wanted to honor my parents. My mother had Alzheimer's for 18 years, and my father was the main caregiver. They were married 52 years, and they were the greatest role models. And so when I thought, how can I almost compensate the world that they lost my mother, because she was so precious and such a role model to me. And growing up in a home where so much love, it was the natural thing to take their marriage and try to publicize it to the world, in effect. And that's how I got involved at the very beginning. Plus, after my mother died, my daughter, I have an only child, and she became engaged. And so it was, the timing of it was like that this is something that was almost Mina Shemayim to put together in terms of the whole dating, engagement, marriage. And interestingly enough, she was engaged to, or married now, to an only. So there were two onlys getting, and to me it was like, of course they need some kind of marriage preparation course or counseling. I mean, it's just like obvious, and because they didn't have it in their home, it wasn't like there was siblings. And so and I started this massive hunt for an appropriate vehicle, and there was none at that time. This was like 18 years ago, I believe, that there was there were not marriage education courses. It was almost like, so I didn't want to make my son-in-law a guinea pig, to make it, that's not how I wanted to start our relationship. But I did approach his Masada Kedushin, and I said, to me, it was like clear. The rabbi would, of course, say, well, yes, I agree, there should be some marriage preparation. And instead, he said, no, I don't see the need. And it was, I literally made it almost my PhD thesis to inundate him with why these two onlys needed some kind of marriage preparation. And I used a lot of Dr. Twersky's material. And finally, I convinced him. But then the second stage was finding the appropriate person and vehicle. Because now that I at least got him on board, that he would suggest to my son-in-law to be that this would be nice for them to get the count. There was nobody that could be identified, and instead it came to using a relative that was a therapist, but she only handled the deepest dark cases. So it was not only finally I'd won the victory of getting the concept on board, but then, trying to find the right person. So all of this, and at the same time, I live in Beit Shemesh. And as another way of honoring my mother, there was a number of reaching that age in the community where there were children getting married. And so that we had I started the Simcha Gemak as an adjunct of the Givat Sheret Hesed Committee, where I live in Givat Sheret, a neighborhood of Beit Shemesh, and so that there was already established a Hesed Committee, so that the Simcha Gemak became the adjunct. And our main flagship product is the wedding guide, and which we're now proudly in our 7th edition. And so that, and it's really, again, it was another vehicle for kind of backdoor publicizing the need for marriage education and also prenups at that time. So that, so it kind of used it as a forum for, besides getting your wedding dress, by the way, sign up for a marriage course and prenup, at the same time. So again, I'm a businesswoman from the States. So I've been involved in lots of different things, banking and city planning, lots of things, never in the mental health arena. And so just that was not the path I was taking. And so that the interesting thing about relationship coaching, marriage education is that you don't have to be, as long as you find the right vehicle, the right course, the right curriculum to teach. That's essentially, you don't have to have a certification because you're going on the strength of the material, at least in the case of marriage education. So as a way of providing resources. In addition to the Gemach, it was also clear to me that a wedding is, and especially after doing the wedding guide and all the tedious, tips of making sure that, the napkins are perfectly coordinated. But if the marriage falls apart, what difference did it make that the napkins were perfectly coordinated, right? And so that's when I started the marriage education nonprofit, the Israeli nonprofit Together in Happiness, Biahad Baocher, to be a resource center for basically publicizing the critical importance not only of marriage, but the vehicle of marriage education, and in its broad thing, encompassing coaching also, But the idea that for Jewish couples, not only in Israel but also in abroad, because again, the more resources that people have, the more happy and healthy marriages are not only started but given the seeds for planting for many years to come and generations hopefully. So I have found that in this journey that without the proper resources, unfortunately, divorce is just the glamour, the glow of getting engaged and getting married somehow keeps going off the wagon. And I just saw a symposium upon why young couples are getting divorced. So many of them. I mean, that's really what it's coming down to within the first 7 years, even within the first, according to the Central Bureau of Statistics, even within the first 2 years. And it's really almost epidemic that nobody wants to talk about. So
They saying what is the reasoning?
in some cases, in this particular, this was based in the United States, but again, I assume it's the same culture. In some cases, mental health. In some cases, it's kind of somebody mentioned kind of the social media some mentioned porn kind of thing. Again, and mental health issues, and again, the fact lack of education. There was a study that was done by the commission by the OU, and about couples that kind of dating, like what were some of the issues. And one of the issues they pointed out is the fact that there is not significant or a sufficient relationship education.
Mm-hmm.
There is in terms of the Tara Mishpacha that's required, but not beyond that. And so that, they feel like that people are kind of walking blindfolded into marriage. And as a result, that just, the day of reckoning and awakening. And also there was a recent symposium on the shotgun system. What is it, what's it's not doing, or what it, so, I think there is this kind of awareness that's going on now that's sort of like taking the blinders off of the subject matter and saying, what can we all do better? So that's kind of in a nutshell. This passion that of mine is, we had our first project of the Together in Happiness was the first sponsoring the first international conference on marriage education, and I didn't expect anybody to come, quite frankly. This was 2011, and we had 360 people that came. It was just really like, whoa, where are all these people? Because the idea was to kind of introduce the topic, making people aware that there's not just therapy, because unfortunately too many people go into divorce without ever having even been to a therapist.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's kind of had that, and forget the fact how many questionable therapists there are that, I'll just leave it at that. So that in itself shows that there's a lot of under the carpet items that really have to we can't keep brushing our dirt. And we need to kind of expose the topic in a much greater arena of acceptability. So it's just like our goal is to reach as many sectors as possible. The more that people create a buzz about the topic of the importance of relationship education, coaching, things that you're doing, it benefits everyone. It's an exponential growth, but it has to be talked about where there's not a stigma, so that people don't feel that the only time that that you have to hush, you actually like it's some liability for needing to have a coach. It should be clear, but until it becomes accepted as a widespread notion, there's still that kind of vulnerability, I would say, that is still needs to be more accepted.
Mhm.
So
Sure.
that's kind of a long road to tell you who I am, where I am.
Well, thank you for that. That was very interesting and so true.